You ever wake up one morning and realize you're done, letting other people decide how small your life should be? That's exactly how it started for me. My name's Daniel Cooper, civil engineer out of Cedar Grove, Tennessee. And if you've ever tangled with an HOA, you probably already know how a cup of coffee can turn into a full-blown war before 9 a.m. It began with a bright yellow envelope and a fine for $2,200. Apparently our mailbox wasn't the approved color. Never mind that the code hadn't changed since 2006. 3 days later, a tow truck rolled up to haul my wife's car off our own driveway. That was the moment I started keeping score. We'd moved into Cedar Grove Heights 3 years earlier, right after my wife, Lena, lost her mom. Her inheritance was small, but it gave us enough for a down payment, a patch of peace after a long storm. Lena had planted sunflowers along the fence in her mother's memory. They were her way of keeping a little warmth in the world. But to the HOA president, Marjorie Lane, those flowers were visual disorderliness. I still remember how Lena stood on the porch letter trembling in her hand, trying to laugh it off. Her lip quivered instead. Losing her mom had been hard enough. Now strangers were measuring her grief in inches of mulch. That morning I saw Marjorie drive by in her little golf cart clipboard, Pearl's perfect hair sprayed so stiff it didn't move even when she smirked. "You'll want to handle that violation before the next meeting," she said loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Marjorie," I told her evenly, "those flowers are within the line." She tilted her sunglasses down. "The board disagrees." Then she clicked her pen like she was signing a royal decree and rolled away. I looked back at Lena, shoulders slumped, and something in me clicked. They weren't going to make her feel small again. Not this time. That night I printed every single HOA bylaw and amendment, 187 pages of legal spaghetti, and spread them across the dining table. Somewhere between the noise of the printer and the hum of the fridge, I started to see patterns. Same 6 houses, same selective enforcement, same smug signatures. It wasn't about beautification. It was about control. The next day I went to the county records office and asked for the original developer's plats. The clerk, a kind man named Ed, slid a dusty folder across the counter. "Funny thing," he said, "this subdivision's easement lines were never updated after 2012. You'd think the HOA would have fixed that. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I wrote it down anyway. Every date, every parcel number." When I got home, Lena was standing by the window, arms crossed. "They called the cops," she said quietly. "What, why?" "They said your truck was facing the wrong direction overnight. The officer was embarrassed, said it was a wellness check." That's when I knew we weren't just being fined. We were being built into a case file. That night, I made a new folder on my laptop. Operation Compliance. I scanned every notice, logged every incident, time-stamped every picture. Lena leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Promise me you'll stay calm." I said I'll stay lawful. The next HOA meeting was like walking into a courtroom with bad lighting and folding chairs. Marjorie sat up front with her vice president, both of them looking like they'd rehearsed this moment in a mirror. "Mr. Cooper," she began, "your property remains non-compliant in 3 areas: landscaping, vehicle orientation, and exterior fixtures." I asked fixtures. She said, "Your porch light, bulb wattage exceeds community limits under section 4.3. The room chuckled. I leaned forward. "And who measured that?" She smirked. "Our compliance committee." I smiled back. "So your husband and your real estate agent neighbor." The laughter stopped. "I'd like that in writing," I said, lifting my phone to record. "You're required by Tennessee law to disclose enforcement methods." Her smile cracked just enough to show a glimpse of panic. After the meeting, a man caught up to me outside. "Name's Paul Duncan." He said, "Former treasurer." They kicked me off when I started asking questions about landscaping contracts. He handed me a USB drive, everything I could save before they locked the files. That night I opened it and my stomach dropped. Every month, $3,000 paid to a company called Cedar Green Services, LLC. Except the company had been dissolved 5 years earlier. The checks all routed to a P.O. box registered to guess who Marjorie's husband. I sat there staring at the screen, realizing we weren't dealing with petty power trips anymore. This was fraud dressed in cardigans. The next week, the HOA sent a final warning, $700 in cumulative fines threat of lien attached. Lena's hands shook as she read it. They can't take our house, right? Not legally, I told her. But their betting will think they can. I looked at the papers and remembered something from my engineering days. Every structure has a load limit. Push too hard, it breaks. I was going to find their weak beam. At the county clerk's office, buried in a binder from 2009, I found it. The common pond, the walking trail, and the green belt behind half the homes were still deeded to a defunct developer. The HOA had never officially claimed them, which meant all those citations about landscaping near the trail, they had no authority there. I smiled to myself. 2 weeks later, I bought that parcel under a new LLC, Ridgeline Restoration. Cost me $800 and a signature. When the clerk stamped that deed, it felt like thunder under glass. I didn't tell anyone, not even Lena. I wanted them to keep overplaying their hand. Sure enough, the next Saturday, Marjorie showed up with a landscaping crew. We're here for corrective action, she declared, removing non-conforming flora. You step 1 foot on that property, I said, and it's trespassing. She smirked. The HOA governs the greenbelt perimeter. I smiled right back. You might want to check the county register before testing that theory. Her face tightened. She left, but I could see doubt flicker for the first time. 2 nights later, I caught her and the vice president walking the property line with flashlights. My cameras caught everything time-stamped, backed up, cloud-synced. The next morning, my lawyer, Naomi Briggs, sent a cease and desist letter citing criminal trespass. Marjorie responded with an HOA-wide email calling my claim false. I said nothing. I waited. The trap was already set. When the special board meeting came, the community center was packed. Marjorie's teal blazer looked like armor, but her eyes were restless. "Mr. Cooper," she began, "you remain in violation." "Correction," I interrupted. "Those lots are outside your jurisdiction. Mr. Cooper, sit down." "Gladly." After one question, "Can you confirm ownership of parcel 14C?" Silence. I held up the deed. "Because as of May 8th, this land belongs to Ridgeline Restoration, LLC me, which means your fines are null." Gasps rippled through the room. Then Naomi stepped forward, briefcase in hand. "Evening, everyone," she said. "We've filed formal notice of jurisdictional conflict. Copies for you all." Papers shuffled, whispers spread. Someone in the back shouted, "She's been pocketing our dues." Marjorie's voice cracked. "You think you're smarter than everyone here?" "No," I said. "Just tired of watching people get bullied." Mrs. Jennings, the 70-year-old widow from 2 streets over, stood up. "He's right. You fined me for my wind chimes." The room erupted. Marjorie slammed her binder shut and hissed, "You'll regret this." I smiled. Maybe, but not tonight. The next days were chaos emails, flying neighbors, whispering anonymous flyers, accusing us of endangering property values. Someone keyed Lena's car. Still, I kept everything calm and documented. Paul and I built a binder of evidence, fraudulent invoices, duplicate signatures, proof of shell companies. We sent copies to the HOA's insurance provider. And when insurance gets nervous, change happens fast. 2 weeks later, we got the call, county hearing public review of HOA conduct. That room felt different. Wood benches, microphones, an air of finality. Captain Rhodes from the County Oversight Board presided. When he read the auditor's report, unauthorized expenditures, selective enforcement, and harassment-based retaliation, you could feel the air shift. Effective immediately, he said the board's enforcement powers are suspended pending compliance. Marjorie shot up. "You can't do this." Rhodes looked at her calmly. "I didn't. You did." His gavel came down like a thunderclap. You'd think that would have been the end, but pride doesn't go quietly. Marjorie tried one last stunt, a community rally at the Lakeside Pavilion. The irony. The pavilion sat squarely on land I owned. By dusk, 50 residents and a few reporters gathered. She grabbed the mic, calling me a threat to order. When she paused, I stepped forward. "Since this is technically my property," I said, "mind if I speak?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. I held up a laminated map. This pond, this path, this pavilion, transferred legally to Ridgeline Restoration, verified by the county. You're all welcome here because it belongs to the people who live here, not the ones who exploit it. Marjorie lunged for the mic, shouting that I'd forged the deed. That's when Captain Rhodes, off-duty but present, stepped up from the crowd. "Ma'am, I verified it myself." Cameras flashed, the crowd went silent, and I saw Lena near the back, eyes shining with relief. Then Paul handed me a sealed envelope. Inside Marjorie's resignation letter, dated that morning. I held it up. "For everyone's peace of mind, the HOA president has officially stepped down." The crowd erupted. Applause, laughter, even tears. For the first time in months, people felt free again. A week later, the new board formed under a reform charter. Term limits, open audits, transparency. I signed over the pond parcel to the community trust for $1. It was never about owning it, it was about who should. One morning, Lena painted words on a new bench by the water. "Sunflowers stand tall." I think that's what this whole mess was about. Standing tall even when someone tries to make you bend. If you've ever been pushed around by a neighborhood board or a bully in a blazer, tell me what's the right balance between order and ownership. Should HOAs follow the same transparency laws as city councils? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because somewhere out there another fight like this is just getting started. And maybe, just maybe, your story helps someone else stand tall too.